Okay, I think we are ready to start. Welcome, everybody. My name is Stina Cowan. I am the Educational and Cultural Programs Manager here at the National Nordic Museum, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you to this talk on Swedish Dads, the exhibit that we are currently having on display at the museum. And we are very honored to have photographer Johan Bävman here. This will be in conversation with our Director of Collections, Exhibitions and Programs, Leslie Anderson. And before I turn this over to Leslie, I have a few little things to mention. One is to avoid distractions, we ask you to please turn your cameras off and keep your microphones muted, and that way we can all have fewer distractions when we see the images on the screen. This program is in partnership with ASI, the American Swedish Institute in Minneapolis, and we are very happy that we can do this together with them. And this talk today will be followed by a talk on September 23rd at ASI, and you can find that information on either our website or their website, and we hope that's going to be slightly different. So if you want more of Swedish Dads, then please join us on the 23rd. And after the talk or the conversation, there will be a chance to ask questions, and we ask that you post your questions in the chat function on your screen, and then Leslie will read from those questions and Johan will answer them. And with that, I just wish you all a pleasant afternoon and hope you enjoy the talk, and I will hand this over to Leslie. Thank you.
Thank you, Stina. So I have the great pleasure of introducing our guest today, artist Johan Bävman. His work combines his own long-term projects with freelance assignments from different clients worldwide. In 2009, he published the photo book Albino, In the Shadow of the Sun. The project Swedish Dads, which we're talking about today, has had a tremendous impact and has been published and shared widely all over the world. Between the years 2008 and 2011, Johan worked as a staff photographer at Sydsvenskan, one of the largest newspapers in Sweden, and he graduated from Norrens Fotoskola in Stockholm in 2007. He was previously a member of Moment Agency from 2007 to 2015, and he's won numerous awards, including the World Press Photo, the Sony Award, NPPA, and the UNICEF Photo Award. Johan, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction.
So I want to get started with this conversation here, and I thought that I would begin by mentioning that this exhibition, Swedish Dads, which is on view until October 3rd, so please do see it while you can. It is a product of or a result of parental leave established in 1974. And at our museum, at the National Nordic Museum, at the same time, we have a companion exhibition, or an intentionally companion exhibition devoted to the Swedish entrepreneur and fashion designer Gudrun Sjödén, who trademarked her company in 1974. So I kind of think that date is very important here when you think about what your work explores, Johan, and basically creating pathways for women in the workplace. How did the idea of the project come about?
Well, it's actually a quite long time ago. It was when I became father for the first time, which is back in 2012, with my oldest son, Viggo, who is now 8. Being a dad from one day to another was kind of a shock to me. I was really scared in the beginning, scared of doing mistakes and not being that dad that I wanted in a way. And I'm like trying to find literatures or blogs or dads that I could relate to. But I really realized in the beginning that I was kind of alone in the sense of being the dad in the family. And I realized also that my friends and friends to these and dads around in Sweden was lacking role models and people to talk to. And in that sense, I started to hang out with other dads to trying to understand how to be that dad that I wanted. And it ended up in me taking pictures of dad on parental leave and trying to, like, in a way, start a discussion of why we see these men so special, because this is something women have done for decades and never been recognized from. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if it would be women in the pictures. But in the same time that I want to like provoke and trying to have that discussion, in the same sense, we need role models to trying to change a pattern that has been going on for so long. And also that you don't need to be perfect to be on taking that role which is uncertain or you're afraid of. This is something like learning by doing mistakes, of being at home. I really realized that, because now, since I was on parental leave with my second child, I really realized that this is something you learn by doing time with them. So when I came back from my own parental leave, me and my wife, we decided to share equally. So 9 months later, I started to take pictures of dads who was on parental leave themselves, more than 6 months. And yeah, and that has been an exhibition which, as you said, it's been touring around the world and in 65 countries now. So it's quite a big impact, something that I didn't realize at the beginning.
Absolutely. So how did you identify your subjects initially? And did you stick with the same process throughout?
Well, I mean, as taken this 45 dads, so it's quite many dads, but it's just one pictures per dad in a situation. So it's a documentary pictures. So I've been with them quite a long time, some days and some hours. I mean, it all depends in what kind of situation I hooked up with. So I did a short interview with them in the beginning and trying to realize when to come, because as parental leave is kind of all over again. It's like feeding, eating, sleeping, and then it's once again eating, feeding, sleeping, and taking care of the children in a way. And but I really wanted to have like 45 unique pictures that it's not about one dad. It's when you collect the 45 dads together, and you're getting a sense of what it is to be at home. And I also wanted to have that kind of emotional space and the emotional stages of a parent's life and a parent's situation, because that's not often you see men in. I wanted to have them vulnerable in a sense, and not super dads. It's like kind of the emotional stages of our parents' life, where you feel tired, frustrated, and a huge amount of love that you need to handle from your children.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that frankness, because I really see that in the quotes that are companions to the images. What informs your selection of those quotes? Were you constantly scribbling down, excuse me, thoughts that were expressed while you were photographing the subjects?
Yeah, I mean, I did short interviews with a microphone, which I'm trying to I mean, the quotes, as you said, is really important to the stories as well, because you're getting a sense of why they were at home and why they took that. Because, I mean, even though Sweden is kind of equal in many sense, but still we have a long way to go, and we are lonely in a sense of being that dad, the present, the primary carer, and it's hard to. I mean, I swim against the current in a way. It's easier to adapt to the role which is given for you. So I wanted to have those kind of quotes that you can in a way to make the story bigger, and even get a lot of other things that you can't get in her pictures that you can use to highlight something in a text.
Right. So, in thinking about the selection of the quotes but also the publication, because, there are countless photos that you took. How did you curate those 45? How did you select that particular number? And was there a criteria, for instance, for the publication?
Yes, as you mentioned, it was a lot of pictures coming out for each situation. But I mean, I'm trying to get 45 different pictures. As you can see on the pictures on the screen here, there's situation where you can feel you can smile, and sometimes you feel with them that this is hard. This is not something you just learn directly. This is something, and it was hard, but in the end, this kind of a piece of the puzzle. One dad is one piece of the puzzle, and when you see them together, you're getting a sense of how the puzzle will become. But yeah, each dad, it's, I mean, also the second question you had, it was how to find his dad as well. Because when the project became quite big, I wasn't really done with it. And a lot of dads contacted me and saying, well, I'm one of those dads. I can be a part of it. I would love to join. But actually those dads wasn't that good, because they had a way of how they want to be expressed. They want to be that super dad, the dad that could do everything, the one who could change diaper, meanwhile doing cupcakes or blah, 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 like all those kind of things together. But that wasn't the dads that I was looking for in a way. I wanted to have those dads that didn't see it as an effort, more than saw it into something normal.
So would you say that at any given moment in your own experience that the fathers represented resonate with you, or is there an image or a few images that kind of speak to you more than others?
Well, yeah, sure. There has been, I mean, it's been changing quite a lot, as this picture with Anders is really important to the story, even though it's not telling the story of him and his situation. I mean, this is just a small fragment of his life. And I really had to argue to have that picture, because he didn't want to use this picture, because he felt like, well, feel kind of not present dad in a way. But in the sense that I mean, it's just that brick. And so if one dad say that they can't see themselves in Andrew's situation, I think they gotta have some help somewhere, or because everyone who has children knows the feeling of him in the morning having his cup of coffee on the floor and like run out of energy. So that picture is also, and one picture, which is, I think it's the next one. Stina, could you do? Yeah, it's a picture of Göran. And this picture has actually been the most provocative one. I didn't expect that in the beginning. I really enjoy the pictures. I really find it beautiful in a way. It's kind of the calmness and the mindset of him, that it's actually been provocative for a lot of women who consider them that Göran is taking over their role in a way, and that he's almost like pregnant. But also the way of how we see men in the past, like if you go all the way back to paintings from Rembrandt or whatever, you can see that like men in a really active role with a sword on a horse, but you don't often see men in a vulnerable stage. And that is something that has to be changed in order to change the way how men see upon themselves. Because this of being, it's not only about having a system that works for social insurance system. It's also about changing the way how men see upon themselves and how the society see upon men, in order to have more men being at home, because this is not considered masculine enough to be at home with the children, and that has to be changed. You understand?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, with this image in particular, and your comment about conventions in art and the portrayal of the parent-child relationship, I think you're right. This image upends these conventions in a really refreshing way that allows you to, ask questions. Why has it been portrayed that way? And actually, in displaying the exhibition here at the National Nordic Museum, this is one of the first two images next to the text, because I think that it sets you up to ask yourself these questions as you journey throughout the exhibition.
Sure.
So, can you tell me about the response to your project in Sweden versus the many countries that it's been shown? You said 65.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want to pinpoint and trying to highlight Sweden as the most equal country in the world and see upon us we are perfect. We're not. We're actually not. I mean, we have a long way to go to call ourselves equal. But we have a system that works and a system that allows dads to be at home. But in that that I mentioned is not that I don't want to put a country to another in the terms of see upon Sweden, or because I want to start a debate or a discussion, and I think that pictures can do that. Or they actually can do, because I've realized that actually that you can make a difference with pictures, instead of just having a politician coming up and saying, this is good for you, because you need to have something to relate to. And the pictures has been around the world, and he's actually been physical, changing on spots, from all the way from Pakistan to Rwanda and Australia, that I can actually see that the rules has been changed. And that's, I'm really really honored of be a part of that journey in a way. And seeing pictures provoke, and seeing pictures that, or a dad calling me up from Bangladesh saying, well, now I can actually find myself there. I'm going to take that step. I'm going to be at home with my child, even though I don't know anyone who has been that before me, or I don't get anything paid for it, or maybe I lose my job. But I think that this is important for me, as I saw your pictures. And that's, I mean, yeah, that's so nice to hear. And seeing that pictures, and because I've been touring in a couple of countries, and that the subject is so big. It's not only about parental leave. It's, I mean, in Peru, when I was there, the discussion was about domestic violence, and in Japan, we were talking about how to have more parents having more children, and in Australia, we're talking about how to combine family life with working life, for example. So it's been really different, and the topic and the context of parental leave or my project has been huge and far more bigger than I expected in the beginning.
Right. So, so many of these effects seem to be long-lasting effects, and grander, or perhaps not exactly what you envisioned. But are you pleased with them?
Yeah, I am still. Yeah, and I mean, as we sitting here, and maybe this discussion with the participation listen to us, maybe we'll also take that our talk towards further on, and that's my intention of the pictures. That's why it's so good to see them in a public place.
So do you see this project continuing?
I've been doing like Swiss dads, I've been doing Aussie dads, I've been doing local dads for finding local role models on spot. But the pictures has also start a community, and a lot of other has been taking pictures and tag their own situation, as with Swedish dads or dads on leave, whatever. And I mean, I think that the discussion is not by far ended. This is something that can go on and needs to go on, and has to take to a level of politicians and about human rights and parents' rights and so on. So I think that discussion has just started. But I'm not taking new pictures of Swedish dads. I'm done with the role as being a photographer.
How would you see this project through the lens of child rearing during COVID-19? When you know, many parents are teleworking, and perhaps daily life has shifted for many.
Sure. I mean, it's kind of different, this situation from you and from me at the moment. I hasn't been at home in that sense. As you perhaps know, Sweden hasn't been had a lockdown. So, but I can just refer of having both parents at home and the necessary needs of who is the primary care at home when both parents are at home or at home. It's kind of it's instinct in a way, but I think it's can cause a lot of problem. And also, as I said about domestic violence, I think that's a huge issue, that both parents being at home and with two children in a small apartment, that causes problem itself. and that's really worrying. I'm worried about more like not like people coming in bad places and in casualties, and not casualties, but I mean people getting really affected about it.
Mm-hmm. What would you want someone to take away from the exhibit, from the book?
To bring with them?
Mm-hmm.
I want them to bring the discussion that we are having here.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully that they can relate to, I mean, this is not only for men. This is for women as well. And seeing the pictures is something that you can relate to, even though they are Swedish dads. The scenario, the situation is worldwide, and that's why it makes a really good starting point of a discussion of why we don't find this normal.
Mm-hmm.
That, and maybe a provocative way of starting something new, in terms of that women has to rethink, and men also too. I mean, this is not only a man issue. I mean, I realized how difficult it is and how complex, in terms of a lot of women don't consider the men being good enough to taking that role. This is a role which is given for the women, and also the men is kind of easier going of being the breadwinner. So it's both ways that we need to rethink of why we don't share the burden, the laughter, the joy. But I mean, you need to realize it by yourself. It's not having a nanny at home, or having a grandmother at home, or having your wife at home. You need to do this on your own in order to understand how it is to be at home. This is not something you learn by reading a book.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's not only about being a dad, a really present dad. It's also about unpaid work at home, and understand what their partner is going through.
Mm-hmm.
In that sense, I think that the family relationship will be stronger. And in the very end, you will becoming a team together. And that's what I realized anyway, that this is something you need to do together in order to handle it or go through it in good and worse.
So we're showing an image right now that I think while many of them, you know, they capture different moments or episodes in the life of being a parent, I think that some of the photos that I find most interesting are those that show in mundane situations this kind of spark of creativity. So how you learn to get through your day and your tasks and doing it in a really creative and inventive way. For instance, and this father right here, you know, did you similarly delight in those moments and kind of seeing you know, these kind of glimmers of creativity in everyday activities?
Sure. I mean, as being a photographer, I really enjoy like having humors in my pictures,
Mm-hmm.
and that you can feel laughter and joy. And this situation is one of those, definitely. Ola, I was talking to him, he lived in the countryside. I was going towards his place, and I was asking him when to come. And he said, well, the thing is I need to clean up before you come, because my wife said so. I was like, no, 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 no. You don't have to clean up, because that's the thing. You don't have to clean. All right, because the thing is with my son, Gustav, which is on his back, has just starting walking. And Ula was that guy who was like seeing the future to come. He was like always, well, what if my child will jump and hurt himself over there? Or what if he will put his hand in the electricity? So he was, when I came there, he was like putting up plastic on all like sharp edges and so on. Mm-hmm. But when he really had to vacuum the place, he needed to have control of his baby. So that's why he borrowed or bought the backpack. And I realized this is going to be a really good picture. So I told him that, well, you don't have to clean, because I'm going to take a picture when you're cleaning up the mess. So he did.
That's fantastic. I just wanted to open it up to our participants here for questions, and we've received a couple. So one you've kind of touched on already, which is the reaction to your photos in different countries. Another one is from Ted Johnson, and he asks you to share the options families have to implement their leave. Sure.
Well, in Sweden, we have 480 days in total paid leave. So 390 of these 480 days are paid 80% of your salary. And even the 20%, which is lost, is some of the bigger companies paying up the minimum wage. And the rest of the 90 days are lower wage salary. But still you're getting like 480 days in total. And 90 of these days are bound or like restricted to the second partner. And if you don't take them out, you will be burned, they will be burned in. And you can use these days flexibly until the child is becoming 12. And until 4, you can use a special amount of days. Well, it's kind of complicated, even for me, who has been talking about this quite much. And we also have 2 extra weeks in the beginning when the child is getting born to be both parents to be at home.
Okay. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Oh, okay. So a follow-up is, were men included with the options from the beginning?
Once again.
Were men included with the options from the beginning?
From the beginning, options? Sorry, I'm going to read it as well. The options of what? I'm sorry.
So the options that families have to implement their leave.
Yeah, I mean, they are shared equally. We have the same amount, both parents, and then you can share it between each other. But 90 of the days must be taken by the second partner. But you can change them and use them however you want, but not the 90 days. So, I mean, in Sweden, as I said before, we have a long way to go still. We're not there. We're only like 25% of the dads taking out their days. But I mean, you can see it more often, dads with a stroller It's not uncommon in the cities,
Mm-hmm.
but it is in the countryside or in the suburbs and so on. So that's something that we need really to figure out.
And is the 480 days per child or total for the family?
Once again?
Is the 480 days per child or for?
Per child.
Okay. So we have another question. What advice do you have for U.S. families, given that we don't have similar policy as Sweden does? And then I'll have a follow-up question after that.
Well, it's really hard because, as I said, I don't want to have Sweden on top of the States, and because you have other benefits. But I think that need to. I don't know what the situation. I mean, I'm curious to know how it works. I mean, as when I was in the States before, I realized that parents need to go back to work like really, really early. They're having like, for my sense, I wouldn't dare to have a child with someone else before they like leave their diapers. I mean, it feels weird to not hear their first word, not seeing them walk. But still, by saying that, it's really hard because obviously there's no alternative, and that's the saddest part. That it's that you may lose your job, or people will look upon you, or it's not even possible economically. So I don't have an answer for it. I don't, because but you need to I mean, in order to talk about this situation, you need to have a situation that makes it possible. But still, we need also, there's a lot of work that has to be done in terms of masculinity, where we can start. We can be talking about masculinity and how men see upon themselves. Could they see themselves if the situation would be that they could be at home? It's not that simple. If you would have a system as ours, I'm not saying that all men would salute and be at home, because they won't. It takes so much more than just regulation.
How are moms celebrated in Sweden?
Yeah, that's the thing with the project, that this is something women have done, as I said, and never been saluted for. And this is something that a lot of mom has been provocative of, seen my pictures, seen my few percentage on the wall of a nice galleria or nice museum. And I totally understand it, but still, it is still the discussion which I really comes to. And we have, as you, Mother's Day and Father's Days and so on, but being a parent is not something to do about sex. It's something for both men and women. Both has to be at home in a way.
Yeah, and I mean, in looking at your book and in the exhibition, there are so many moments where you see a father kind of arms outstretched, and this truly, key moment in the development of a child learning how to walk, or reading to a child and like being fully engaged in intellectual development. And it shows that, gender is not important. These are the key moments in nurturing and bringing up a child. And there's a kind of universality, I think, to these images. I wanted to now ask another question from the audience. This one's from Maggie. She asks, in this era of hate speech, have you experienced hostile or negative feedback about your exhibit? And what form, if so, did that take?
Yeah, it has both bloggers, or especially internet, I would say, people like writing comments on my pictures saying that, well, this is not something, why are we celebrating men in that sense, as we said. But also one woman who said, which was really important in a way, because she was from Pakistan, and she was saying that, well, by this project, you're taking away the only thing that you men believe I'm better than you in. What is it there left for me? And I mean, it's complex, as I said before. If the women doesn't have anything else to do in order to not go to start work, or they are not able to work, or they are not, the society tells them differently. It's important, and it's I mean, it's far more bigger than I expected in the beginning. But I guess it's not about me talking about men to be at home. The most provocative thing is of me wanting to change the role of men. Like, why can't men cry? Why can't men feel vulnerable? Why can't men be at home with their children and changing diaper and still be masculine?
Do you want to comment maybe on this this image, because I think that it relates well to your response?
Sure. Samad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was calling him up, and we had a really good SMS talk before having his children, and they were what do you call it? When they came too early.
Prematurely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, and they had seizure. So, his daughters needed to have formula, we call it, formula, in the beginning, and needed to have really comfort in terms of heartbeat and so on. And as his wife had a seizure, so she was in operation, he needed to take that role. And I felt that was really good, in a sense that I wanted to have that present dad, but also the vulnerable one, the one that it's something that with the pictures which I really like. Mm-hmm. Seeing him in a really state of mind of being really, really present and not thinking about something else. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of, yeah.
And the quote that is paired with this image?
I don't have the quote in my head.
I mean, it speaks to the choice of becoming a parent.
Mm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He thought it was hard in the beginning. Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. Of if I, as a dad, is possible to have been. It's kind of, it changed your way of life of being a parent. It's I mean, it's a life before children and a life after children, because your life turns upside down in both good and bad ways. But you need to adapt to it, and you need to find your new role in the world, and it takes time, and it helps to be two.
Michael asks if you see any qualities learned at home that are transferable to the workplace.
Oh, sure. I think that being at home or being on parental leave, coming back to work, brings you something that you don't find otherwise. Being most efficient, definitely, and also, I mean, I'm just seeing upon myself that you learn to see others. Being a CEO or a boss, it's so important to be at home and being responsible of someone else, that you need to put someone else before yourself and your own needs. I mean, you need really to change your way of life, and that makes you a better co-worker, because you can see your co-workers, you can see your colleagues, and you can actually see if someone needs help. And that's something you learn by having children. So I think in terms of long-term way, you earn quite much as a company as well, of having both parents at home for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. It does transfer to the workplace, and the kind of, the reliance on your partner and that equal distribution, and then heightened consideration of your colleagues in a workplace. I could see a very strong link. In your project, what of families in which there were two fathers?
Yeah, there were, I mean, that is not the important part. That how the constellation is. It's just a discussion of men being more present, and how the constellation are, if it's two women or two men or a star family or whatever. I'm not putting into account in that sense, and I don't think I mean, as having two dads in the pictures, that wouldn't be. I mean, it's just being one parent on itself, because the other one is obviously at work. So,
right.
So no matter how this constellation is, the other one is not present at the moment.
Okay. So Joanne asks, how has Sweden studied what kind of changes, and you talked a little bit about this in family life and business life, and changes in the economy that's occurred as a result?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say how the economy of the country has changed in order to have this, but definitely it changes in that terms of having more women going back to work, and having a double workforce, and that both parents can go back to work easily. Because, I mean, consider yourself being at home, having 3 children, and just 2 years between them, or 1. I mean, you off work for a long time of work, long time away. And it's kind of hard to go back to work then. It's easier to be the one who's taking care of the house and the children. Mm-hmm. But having both parents take turns, you don't lose your way of work as well, because it's kind of hard to be away too long and coming back. So I think that's how it all started, I think, in the very beginning of our system, that we needed to have more workforce, and needed to bring in the women as well. And that way we needed to find a solution to have them help them out in a way. I'm not saying that's good enough, because women need to work so much harder than men in general, both home and at work, to have a career. And that's sad to see.
Mm-hmm. So we're kind of closing out the hour. I wondered if there's anything that you wanted to share that we haven't covered about this project, or fantastic exhibition, or the related publication.
There's a book.
Yes. Available through our museum store as well.
Sure. Yes.
So you can take a deeper dive into the images that we've shown here that are on view in our gallery, but there are many more paired with quotes that are just, pregnant with meaning.
Good to hear.
So thank you so much, Johan, and thank you to our audience for attending this conversation on Sunday afternoon here in Seattle. Please join us for our next conversation. It will be hosted by ASI in Minneapolis on, let's see, Sina, when is that?
23rd.
The 23rd, yes. So thank you, Johan, and thank you to our viewers.
Thank you for listening.
Okay, bye-bye.